Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Erie Side Podcast with your hosts, Elena,
Sophia,
and Dee.
We just want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you haven't had a chance yet, please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using to listen to our podcast. We really appreciate it. And if you guys have any notes or any messages that you'd like to send us about key suggestions or anything like that, you can always just send us a message on Apple or Spotify. All right, guys, I hope you're ready to get on the Erie side. So, Mom, I think you have a case for us today, right?
Yes, I do. Okay, so my case is about a gentleman called Paul Skiba. He was 38 years old and he was a divorcee father. He owned his own moving truck, which was called Tough Movers, and it was in Westminster, Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah, we used to spend some. We had spent some time in Colorado before, so
Yeah, we're a little bit familiar with it.
So here's the story. On February 7th of 1999, he was covering a shift for one of his employees who was supposed to do the job that day, and he couldn't, and asked him if he would do it. And Paul said sure. And he was at work by 8:30 in the morning. Now, Paul, as a divorcee, also had a daughter, and his daughter, that particular weekend, he had his daughter. And he had to watch her. So, and his daughter's name's Sarah, and he brought her to work with him. Sarah was 9 years old. Now, Paul used to have Sarah every other weekend. And if he had to work, he would leave her with his mother. However, this weekend, his mother was out of town, so he took her with him to work. Lorenzo Chivers was one of his employees who also came to assist him for the day. So now it's the three of them. The three arrived at Thornton at 10:30 a.m. for a moving job. Then around 12:50 p.m. they had lunch in Lakewood, Colorado. Then they had a moving job in Morrison and then the Golden area. Around 6:15 p.m. they arrived at the Tufts moving yard. Sarah made one final call at 6:22 p.m. to Teresa Donovan, who was Paul's girlfriend. This was the last time anyone heard from them. When Paul and Sarah failed to return home, Teresa phoned the police department. She said that they did not take her seriously. Now, remember that Teresa is Paul's girlfriend. Now, Teresa has a sister. Her name is Bobby Joe. And Lorenzo Chivers, the gentleman who also went on the moving job with Paul, he lived with Bobby Joe. Now, she's also Teresa's sister, like I mentioned, and he was working that day.
Wait.
And it was a Sunday, too.
Who lives with Teresa's sister?
Lorenzo Chivers, the other gentleman who was on the moving job with Paul.
Oh, okay. So Paul's there. Paul's girlfriend is Teresa. Teresa's
Teresa's sister, Bobby Joe, and Lorenzo Chivers lives with Bobby Joe. Yes.
Okay. And they all live together?
No.
No,
the two couples do not
live together. Okay.
That's interesting because if he was with them on the drive today, she's... Sorry, did he just call her or she just called him?
No, Sarah called Teresa.
Sarah called Teresa, okay.
Right.
Then hopefully, I don't know where Lorenzo is in the story, but...
Well, they're all missing right now.
Right.
Do we know what the phone call was about, or are you going to get into that later?
I think it was just, if I remember, Sarah just telling her they're going to come on home.
Oh, okay. So
it was not,
normal.
Very normal, very short. It wasn't too long or anything.
Okay.
So now they're all missing, and Teresa has called the police. They're not taking her seriously. So late the next morning, Teresa calls Sharon. Sharon now is Paul's mother, and she is also Sarah's grandmother. And now, she would also watch Sarah, but she's out of town. So she gets this phone call, and he tells...
Wait, is this the next day?
In the morning, late next morning.
Oh, wait, I'm so confused. So they didn't arrive home that day, and Teresa waits until the morning?
No, she called the police.
She called the police when they didn't come home, but they didn't take her seriously.
Right, okay.
So
But
she's
waited-
waiting for them to come home because the police didn't do anything.
Well, I'm so yeah. I mean, I guess not that she did anything wrong, but I would have expected her to have called his mom sooner. But
I think
maybe she was hoping they'd come home.
The police do say something, but I don't remember if they say it that evening or they say it later. But
I'm kind of shocked that they didn't do anything because Sarah is a child, but also I understand because Teresa isn't her guardian, isn't her, they're just in a relationship. So technically, if the father wanted to leave with Sarah, he has every right to.
I'm really tired of police not taking it seriously when somebody's like, hey, my family member, and this is not normal. I don't know where they are,
Okay, let me just continue.
Yeah, continue
so you
and then
guys can see what's going on. Mm-hmm. Late the next morning, so Teresa calls Sharon, right? And tells her Paul hadn't come home and that the police were not taking her seriously. Now, Sharon also finds out that Paul did not take Sarah back to her mother's house either, and he hadn't shown up for work to do a job that was lined up that morning also. So Sharon herself then decided to call the police and tell them Paul's missing. When she reached Detective Dante Carbone at the Thornton Police Department, he told her that Paul had probably decided to take Sarah for a ride and was out having a good time.
I'm sorry, what?
Okay, that's right.
Okay.
He told Sharon that Paul had decided to take Sarah out for a good ride.
Right. That whole day and the night and the next morning all was just a whole ride.
Right, without contacting anyone.
That's just so disrespectful too.
And stupid.
That? Yeah.
And also out of character for Paul.
Yeah, seriously.
Carbone explained that Teresa and her sister had already called a number of times. Okay? So the detective is quite aware of the situation. Sharon tells the detective that this is her first phone call to him and that there is something drastically wrong. In addition, Paul was supposed to call her on Sunday and didn't. So she also didn't get a phone call she was expecting from Paul. Sarah's mother now hadn't received her daughter and reports her missing as a missing child to authorities because she didn't come home and from her father's visitation. So investigators initially believed that Paul had abducted Sarah with Lorenzo as possible accomplice.
I don't know why he would abduct her with Lorenzo, though,
I mean, I think they're just grasping at straws here.
Well, their assumption is that maybe some of the backstory is that maybe Paul, wanted Sarah for himself and that he was more or less, kidnapping her, because it's a divorce situation. So he only gets her every other weekend.
Right.
So maybe that.
But why would he do that with Lorenzo?
Because Lorenzo's missing, so they assume that Lorenzo is an accomplice.
Yeah.
Right.
And for what reason would Lorenzo put his whole life at risk to help with this? And they're not even related. Really.
Well, they're not looking for common sense.
Yeah, there probably isn't.
This is frustrating.
Okay, so a warrant was issued for Paul's arrest. Authorities thought that the disappearance was related to a possible custody dispute. Now, I'm going to go and explain a little bit about the moving company. Tough Movers was built around Paul's personality. He was a responsible, meticulous, and outgoing. And that he was meticulous and responsible, and everybody knew it, is important for later on. So I just want you guys to remember that. His employees said that he was firm but fair. Like when someone broke something, he showed his temper, but he was always willing to give anyone a chance. Paul would give the shirt off his back. He hired some shady folks, and it was because they needed help, they needed work. He just treated people great. Now, Sarah was the love of Paul's life, but there was another girl competing for his attention. And you guessed it, it was Teresa. So here's a little bit of background. Teresa, his girlfriend, okay? Paul met Teresa Donovan at a Halloween party not long after his divorce, and the two dated on and off for quite a few years. Teresa was 10 years younger than Paul and didn't work because she was disabled. When the arthritis in her legs acted up, Paul would carry her up and down the stairs. She sometimes stayed with Paul and Sharon for weeks at a time, an arrangement that was often...
Do you mean Paul and Sarah?
Sharon.
Who's Sharon?
His mother.
Oh, okay.
Paul lived with Sharon, his mom.
Oh, Paul lived with his mom. Okay.
And so she sometimes stayed with Paul and Sharon for weeks at a time, an arrangement that often strained because Sharon and Teresa didn't get along. Now, Teresa slept a lot and didn't help around the house. When Paul would have friends over, Teresa would just stay in bed and not help or do much of anything. Now, Paul and Teresa had been broken up for several months when they decided to get back together for a night in early 1998. Weeks later, Teresa told Paul she was pregnant.
Ooh, okay.
Wow. I wonder if that's true or not.
That's interesting because that was a question that came up later.
She sounds like she could be manipulative, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like my first vibe I'm getting from her.
So Paul, since he's a responsible person, he rented a trailer for Teresa to stay in that April, then had her move into the house just before her due date in November. Paul had started telling friends that he doubted he was the father and planned to get a paternity test, but in the meantime, he wanted Teresa and the baby in his house because he was worried that she wasn't capable of caring for a child.
Wow. That's a lot to unpack right there because, number one, there's something about their relationship that makes him think that this is not his child, which would indicate that she's cheating on him.
Mm-hmm.
But number two is that he seems like a really good human being if he's having these questions about it, but he still cares enough about this child that may not even be his to say, you know what, this person is probably not capable of caring for a child, and I'm caring enough for this baby to make sure it's okay. That's he seems like a really good person.
Everybody more or less liked Paul, more or less. But I mean, he still was a human. He was a boss, so he's going to have some people who are not going to like what he said. But on the overall, remember that he was responsible. He was pretty good. People even thought he was a fair boss, which says a lot.
Yeah.
Now, this is what happens. He said he came home from work and he found her still in bed, or she was partying next door with a neighbor, and he left Sarah to take care of the baby. He said that he was going to...
Wait. Yeah. The baby had been born?
Yeah. At this point of the story, the baby is born. And it's a boy, by the way.
Okay.
Okay. And at this point, where we're at the very end now.
Does the baby have a name?
I think it comes later. I don't remember right now.
So Sarah was taking care of the baby?
Yes. So, she had the baby, and then he moved her. Remember, he moved her into the house because she didn't think was capable of carrying the baby. And then he comes in, and either she's in bed and isn't doing anything, or she leaves the baby with Sarah, and she's out partying with a neighbor. And I think this happened quite a few times because he had told his friends he was kind of fed up with everything.
So Sarah, the kid, was then taking care of the baby.
Yes, and she's 10 years old.
Wow.
Correct. Okay, and this is a small baby. This is not even a year old. Okay. Now, the employee who had asked Paul to do the job on Sunday because he couldn't do it, his name was Jerry. And he shows up Monday to do a job with Paul and Lorenzo again, but they weren't there. Right away, he noticed that the big moving truck was there. He said that Paul always backed it into a specific spot, but now it had been pulled in front where it never was, and it was parked crooked, which Paul never did that.
That's interesting.
Yes, so Jerry already is looking at the parking lot and saying something's going on or something's not right, like he's used to seeing things. Paul was a neat freak and anal about everything. So Jerry's thinking, oh, I can't wait to hear why the truck's parked like that. Like he thought there was going to be a story that Paul was going to tell him. Something happened. Okay. So Jerry opens the gate and he realized that the lock has been changed.
What? It's been changed?
Yes, the lock has been changed.
That's pretty sudden for a lock to be changed.
And Jerry knows Paul well enough because, they spend time together. So he doesn't know what's going on because he tries to get in and the lock's been changed, right? And
Interesting.
And he knew Paul was taking his job on Sunday and had talked to him, and Paul never said about a lock being changed. So he thinks that's strange, but he did know that Paul would buy a new lock whenever he fired someone. So Jerry's thinking, well, maybe somebody had screwed up, and that would be part of the story he's going to hear, why the truck is the way and what happened. So he's thinking there's a story there, like someone did something, Paul fired them, he changed the lock. Okay. The employee, Jerry now, is waiting outside the gate for Paul and Lorenzo to show up. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about Lorenzo Chivers. He's been working for Paul for a few months. Now, they've met through Teresa since Lorenzo lives with her sister. Now, they say he's a mellow, nice guy who could strike up a conversation with anybody. Now, Lorenzo is a father of 2 children. 15-year-old Josh, who actually lived with him at the moment, and Bobby Joe, and 12-year-old Aubrey. And it wasn't like him to just take off and not let his kids or their mother know where he was. Even though Lorenzo was separated from his wife, I don't think he's divorced, and her name is Misha, they were still close. Recently, they even talked about having a reconciliation. Misha didn't know what to think when Josh called her that Monday to say that his father hadn't shown up the night before. She asked to talk to Bobby Joe, and this is what she says. I know he's not coming home. This is Bobby Joe saying that. She remembers Bobby Joe telling her, I know something horrible has happened to him.
Wait, who remembers Bobby Joe saying that?
Misha, which is Lorenzo's
ex-wife.
Well, no, they're not divorced, but
that's true. Okay.
Separated, his wife.
Okay.
Now this happened Sunday. Okay, it's Wednesday now. And it was Wednesday before anyone could convince the police to check out the Tough Movers lot. A Westminster officer met the employee there, I think it was Jerry, and told him to open the gate. And Jerry said that he didn't have the key and didn't want to cut the lock in case it was evidence. Irritated, the officer slammed his car into the fence.
Oh my God.
Then jumped onto his hood and over the gate.
Jesus.
Wow.
So now Jerry's inside the lot, and he tried to think of what was different from how he left the lot on Saturday. So, Jerry was there on Saturday and he came Monday, so he knew the only day he wasn't there was Sunday. So he's like, what's different than from Saturday? He noticed a puddle of oil partly covered by a piece of plywood, and he pointed it out to the policeman. And this is what the policeman responded to him. Can you prove that he didn't change his oil?
I feel like given that this policeman just crashed into a fence, I'm not sure he's going to have much success communicating with him.
So then Jerry goes to the big moving truck that he noticed parked funny on Monday, and he tried to peek inside the cab without touching anything. He said, that's unusual right there, he said. The truck's clean. We live in these trucks. So the truck had been cleaned out, and he's trying to tell the policeman, listen, we are in these trucks all the time. They're not this clean. The cop grabbed the driver's door handle and whipped it open. Jerry says, I feel he destroyed more evidence than he was willing to look at.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, to him, there was nothing unusual there. I was disgusted with him.
I bet.
I feel that.
So the officer left the lot unconvinced that a crime had been committed. On February 13th, Sharon, his mother now, he flew back to Denver. The whole week, she was calling the police regarding Paul. They told her not to worry because Paul had taken off with Sarah and eventually will come back.
Why are they making that assumption? Like, what proof do they have?
I don't know.
And,
It seems like none.
what's their explanation for Lorenzo and all of this? Like, he's just still helping along. I mean, this is just stupid.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's weird.
But Sharon knew her son wouldn't do that. His business and life were in Colorado. He recently had taken out a second mortgage on his house to pay off credit card debt, and he had been to court enough times to know that keeping Sarah would hurt him. He was
Keeping Sarah?
Yeah, because they said that he took Sarah.
You mean kidnapping? You said keeping Sarah.
Keeping her to himself and not taking her back to her mother. Okay. And he knew that in court that would hurt him. So he was careful to never drop her off late at his ex when he had Sarah. He would always drop her off on time. 1 week after the three went missing, friends of Paul, Rich and Carol, met Sharon, his mom, at the Tough Movers lot. Rich, he's a mechanic, okay? And he had recently been rebuilding an engine in one of Paul's trucks. So he knows the lot. As they pulled up, he spotted the new lock and the odd way the big truck was parked. So now both Rich and Jerry have seen this, okay? He and Carol hopped the fence and told Sharon to wait outside. He wanted Sharon to wait. I think they were assuming they didn't know what they would find, so they didn't want Sharon to see it.
That makes sense.
There were bullet holes in the truck that Rich had been working on and fresh oil stain. So he had been there and he hadn't seen any of that.
Oh, that says a lot, though.
Carol,
Yeah, that's interesting.
Now this is good. Carol saw a smear of blood on the big truck's door, like a print from a bloody shirt sleeve.
That's
and
not
then they both spotted what looked like a small chunk of scalp near
God.
the windshield.
Oh, no.
When we found that, we decided to get out and call the police, Rich says.
Let me ask you, this is after the police officer came with Jerry, right?
This was, the policeman came Monday and now it's Wednesday.
And the police officer didn't see all of this on the truck?
No, because it's not the one of the trucks is parked at a oddly way by the door. And this is the other truck that Rich is working on. And then he's working on the engine. This particular truck, just so you know, doesn't work because Rich has been working on it. So he's refixing the engine. So they climb over the fence and they told Sharon that it didn't look good. And then they call the cops like they said they would. Now the Westminster police arrive and the scene quickly turned into a fight between officers and Paul's friends and family members. The police insisted that Paul had taken off with Sarah.
Still?
Wow.
Yeah, we're still at that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. They threatened to arrest them if they didn't leave because they said no crime has been committed there.
Really?
They were told to go home.
Yes, sounds
that's
like
appalling.
the worst abuse of the police on a case ever. This is just disgusting. I mean, how more obvious can you be?
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, seriously.
I was listening to this.
I
And
mean,
was-
human scalp. I mean,
Well, it looked like it. Okay, so nothing's been tested. This is
okay.
what they thought. So Rich tried to explain that the inside of the moving van was never spotless, but the big truck, the one that's parked odd, was clean except for the blood on the door. Where had the bullet holes come from? Okay.
yeah, I'd like the police to give their 2 cents on what they think.
The police had said somebody could have cut themselves and left blood on the big truck, and the other truck could have been shot at somewhere else while it was moving. That's what they're saying, okay?
As though that's like a common thing to happen.
Well, they do throw stones at you in Colorado, so...
Wait,
Well,
what do you mean they throw?
Well, there was that. First of all, we experienced it ourselves, but also there was that case in Colorado where somebody was throwing rocks at people, and then it ended up killing a girl, and they ended up arresting a bunch of teenagers.
When do they throw rocks?
I don't know, but it happened to us, and when we were in Colorado.
Wait, like they're just
we were on
there?
the street in Denver, and this guy threw a rock and it dented the car.
Oh, they threw it at the car?
Yeah, the car. And that's what happened the other time. The woman was driving and they threw it. They had thrown it at other people, but it hit her a certain way and she crashed her car and died.
Yeah. It was really sad.
Holy cow.
And they actually, I think the guys went back to check it out. But anyways, that's a side story. The police said somebody could have cut themselves and left blood on the big truck, and the other truck could have been shot at somewhere else while he was moving. So they're saying, you're moving and you're getting shot at. Rich had to point out to them that the truck with the bullet holes didn't have a motor. He had yet to install it, so that truck with the bullet holes couldn't move. So now
That's interesting.
Yeah. Now they're at the lot, and then at 10 o'clock at night, it was like a reunion. They say of Paul's friends all walking around. That could be a crime scene now. And while they're all there and they're walking around, the police are arguing over which town has jurisdiction over the case. They were like, it happened in Westminster, it's your jurisdiction. So it was not going well over there. After midnight, a patrol car from Thornton showed up, since a missing person report had already been filed in Thornton. Thornton would continue with the case, the officers informed them. Finally, at 3 a.m., the police took down everyone's information and told them to leave. Police told them that they would wait until the trucks were towed out because they were going to be taken as evidence. Sharon asked that the officers secure the gate before they leave, after everything's been taken out and all that, to at least secure the gate.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning, they went back. The lot is wide open with no crime tape.
Oh, my... What?
The first news report now about the case ran that day. And authorities were looking for a trio who disappeared a week before in what may be a custody battle. So
They're still on the custody.
They're still on the custody battle. Correct. And this is 1 week now, and that's what the report is on the news.
I mean, they sound so dumb. I'm just going to say it. Like, you can't get any dumber than that.
Now, guess what else is missing? Lorenzo's and Paul's cars are missing too.
Interesting.
Yeah. After 2 days, on February 17, 1999, Jerry found Lorenzo's car in a Westminster apartment complex parking lot located several blocks away from the moving and storage facility.
So that's really not that far.
No. On February 27, 1999, the Denver Police Department located Paul's car a few days later at an apartment complex with his personal belongings and Sarah's backpack full of Beanie Babies inside.
Oh.
Paul's usually tidy car had mud all over it, but no fingerprints. Lorenzo's car had also been cleaned.
So it's like somebody wiped it down.
Yeah.
Yes. The police started examining the truck, and this time the Colorado Bureau of Investigation took a look. Using luminol, which Rich had asked the police to use weeks before, they found blood all over the back of the big truck and in the cab.
Oh, my God.
The oil spill was actually blood.
Really?
No way.
Yeah.
Huh. Wait, it just was so dark? It looked like...
Yeah,
oil?
right.
Wow.
They didn't test it. They just
Right.
kind of looked at it. They thought...
Yeah.
There was some oil also, by the way, but DNA tests confirmed that it was Sarah's and Paul's blood.
Oh.
Wow.
And investigators said there was enough to indicate that both Sarah and Paul had been fatally wounded.
Oh.
Wow.
Hair attached to a piece of scalp was found on the hood of Skiba's moving truck. An additional hair was on the truck's fender. The piece of scalp belonged to Paul. The hair was Sarah's.
What? So it was her hair, but his skull?
No.
Skull.
The scalp, where they found the scalp, is Paul's, even if there was hair there. But on the fender, the truck's fender, they found hair. That was Sarah's hair.
Oh, God.
In mid-March, now we're in March, 5 weeks after Paul, Sarah, and Lorenzo disappeared, Thornton police and the CBI said they now had evidence suggesting foul play.
Yeah, no duh.
This is what they believe, that the three were ambushed and killed when they returned the truck to the lot. The police think their bodies were put in the back of Skiba's moving truck, driven to another location, and dumped.
What's so crazy and scary is that there's 2 guys and a kid. It's just 3 people. So, like, how?
They probably had guns, right?
I know, but it's just so terrifying to think that something like that could happen when you're
working with your kid, too?
It's just we're like surrounded by, like, you're in a group of 3 people and like you're just going to work, you're in your car, you don't think anything like that can happen. And then it's like the worst of the worst does. So
now Lorenzo, they think, may have been forcibly taken from the lot and then murdered or killed at the lot in a manner that would have produced no evidence, according to police. They also think that maybe he was taken to wherever they went to dump the bodies and killed there too. That's another thing they're thinking. Now, witnesses said the big truck had left the lot around 7 or 8 the night of February 7th, 1999, okay? And returned around midnight. So this is the same night.
Okay.
That meant the bodies could not be more than a couple of hours away.
Right.
So they're estimating that whoever took them was only a few hours away wherever they took the bodies. So the truck's 3 by 10 foot metal loading ramp, straps, and moving blankets were missing from the vehicle. Authorities believe the ramp may contain evidence related to the cases.
So what?
The ramp.
The ramp. Okay.
They thought that the killers might have tied up the bodies to make them sink. But so they think they threw them somewhere in water. And they said the vegetation in the radiator indicated that the truck had been driven near a body of water.
Interesting.
The authorities had searched nearby lakes, bringing in the nationally recognized necro search team to help them. They also used bloodhounds and even psychics, one of whom directed them to an area with flat rocks near Flatiron Crossing. But they found nothing.
Shocker, the psychic doesn't work.
Well,
or it didn't work, I should say.
So now, according to media reports, Thornton Detective Pat Long, who worked the case for 6 years, believed that more than one person was responsible and that the killers were familiar with Paul's business and knew he'd be returning to the lot that evening. Investigators believe that Lorenzo, Paul, and Sarah were ambushed and killed when they returned the truck to the lot. They believe Paul was the probable target and his daughter and Lorenzo were just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Oh, and it's so unfortunate because usually his daughter didn't even come with him.
Right. His grandma, her grandmother was not available, was out of
That's
town.
so tragic.
Right. So, I don't know. The murderers may have used the moving truck to dispose of the bodies. One witness claims that she heard a woman screaming near the lot on the night of February 7th.
A woman?
Yes. And Jerry says that when he first talked to Teresa, now we remember who Teresa is, right? Mm-hmm. The next day, she said she had gone to the lot the night before and asked him not to tell the police.
Asked who? Oh,
she asked Jerry, his
okay.
friend, right. After Paul and Sarah disappeared, Sharon, Teresa, and the baby lived in Paul's house for a few weeks. Teresa and her mother and siblings searched Paul's things.
That's disgusting.
They were concerned about, life insurance and who was going to take over the business. And she's not married to Paul.
Yeah, that's not even her position to do that.
And
That's
he was going to
ridiculous.
throw her out, too.
Yeah.
There's your motive. Allegedly.
Right. Paul had $100,000 life insurance policy on Sarah. and a smaller one was
Wait, how much was it?
$100,000 life insurance policy on Sarah,
Okay.
and a smaller one with Sarah's and Sharon's name on it. There was nothing with Teresa's name on anything. So Teresa and the baby finally left Paul's house in March, and Sharon changed the locks. But in April, Teresa went to the court to argue that she should control Paul's assets.
Wow.
And she did get some things. And by the way, it is Paul's baby.
Oh,
okay.
They did a paternity test to prove it because she took it to court that she wanted his assets.
Right.
And the court, she had to prove that it was, and it came back. So she ended up taking a lot of Paul's assets.
Just because she has this child?
Yes.
I'm curious, like, what legal, I guess, benefits does that give her?
Well, she went to court for it. She won because of that.
Interesting.
Her Sharon fought her. But that's just a side
As
note.
she should. I
Right.
mean,
Over the next 25 years now, there have been many theories about of what would happen to Paul and why he was targeted. And they say it could be drug trafficking, insurance money, or the Donovan family seeking revenge. And the Donovan family is Teresa's family. So insurance money, well, there was $100,000 policy that Paul had that he put in Sarah's name. Teresa wanted to get it because her son is the only child of Paul's. And I actually think she did get the policy.
Wow.
oh, really?
I think so, if I remember correctly. Now, the Donovan's family seeking revenge, Teresa's brother, his name is Tom Donovan, was one of them. He had been fired by Paul a few months before, and he had a temper.
Oh, so he used to work for Paul.
Correct. After the disappearance, Donovan threatened Jerry, yelling, "You're next, you're next," and throwing rocks at the Tough Movers truck he was driving.
Wow. Do you think, did Teresa know that Sarah was with him that day?
Yeah. Yes, she did know.
Interesting.
Wow.
She was very well aware of that. I mean, don't forget, Sarah called her.
Yeah. I thought
Yeah,
so, but I
that's
just wanted to
true.
double check.
Because I was going to say, like, it could have been life insurance policy on Sarah, but I was like, but she wasn't supposed to be there. But then
Right.
again, she did know that.
if
she was there.
No, she was quite aware.
Yeah.
Don't forget.
Yeah, and
Sarah
we're not
called
saying
her.
that,
No, but I'm just
Teresa's
saying-
involved necessarily, but we're just trying
yeah.
to connect dots.
Sharon says that Donovan called her and said he was glad Paul was dead, that he and Sarah had been shot in the head, and then he was going to shoot her in the head.
Her as in
Sharon.
Sharon. Wow.
Paul's mom.
Right. This is ridiculous.
The third story is that Paul had been using his business as a front for narcotics and got entangled up with the wrong folks. His friends and mother don't deny that Paul smoked pot, which now is also legal in Colorado, though never around Sarah. But they didn't believe that drugs had anything to do with his disappearance. Paul was not a drug dealer, they say, and he would never knowingly put Sarah in danger. Okay, so next of kin, it was Sharon had been appointed temporary conservator of Paul's estate so that she could pay Paul's bill, including the 2 mortgages, and because you remember he had taken a second mortgage and to run the business. They had gone to court, and Teresa was trying to prove that she was Paul's wife, but that didn't happen.
What evidence would she have that she's his wife?
Well, that because of the kid and all that.
Even though they're not legally married.
Well, she was trying to take over the conservatory from Sharon because she felt she was
conservatory or conservatorship? What?
Conservator.
Conservator. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because she felt she was Paul's wife.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of people showed up in court for this. Now, Sharon really fought to take care of Paul's stuff and Paul's business and have things, but Teresa told the court that she and Paul had planned to marry after the baby was born, and then she considered herself married to Paul, and that Paul had bought her a ring when they stopped at a half-price jewelry sale at the mall. Teresa called it the wedding ring. Teresa says she didn't use the Skiba name on documents or call herself married publicly because she was worried about losing her insurance. And at 26, she was still covered by her mother. Don't forget, she is disabled.
Oh, yeah.
And she insisted that Paul had rented the trailer a year before so they could both live there. But because Teresa didn't get along with Paul's mother, and she pointed out that they presented themselves as common law married on the rental application. But the trailer park manager testified that she explained to Paul, who called Teresa his girlfriend, that it would be cheaper for them to rent the trailer as a married couple. So, that's what the trailer park manager told him. But Paul didn't do that. Paul tax accountant testified that Paul had filed as single. Friends testified that Paul wasn't married and that he didn't intend to get married. And don't forget, he didn't put himself down as married on the rental.
Right. And even he didn't.
Yeah, it would have been cheaper.
And even he didn't believe that the kid was his. I mean, it was, but he didn't believe it. So I'm shocked. I would be shocked if he was wanting to marry her while he still had those doubts.
Right. So the Judge Phelps, he ruled that there was no common law marital relationship, noting that while Teresa said numerous times that she and Paul planned to get married, there was no evidence to indicate it happened. We can't be married some of the time and not the rest of the time, he said. You're either married or you're not. Mm-hmm. You can't have it both ways.
Right.
I would also note as an aside that it would seem that if Mr. Skiba had intended to be married, it would have probably been Sharon Skiba who would be getting the trailer and not Miss Donovan.
Yeah.
So, he would have moved his mom out to the trailer and he would have moved into the apartment or home he had. So now Sharon is appointed the permanent conservator, but there's still the matter of child support. So Paul had signed, by the way, his child's name is, Paul had signed Paul Rogers' birth certificate and given the child his last name. So the judge ordered the parties to give him the financial information needed to order child support, and a few months later, the court decided on the amount that Sharon, on behalf of Paul's estate, would pay Teresa every month. And
so what was the kid's name?
I have it as Paul Roger.
Oh, so she named it after him?
Yeah.
Interesting.
At the same time...
Well, Paul was still alive, too, at that point.
Right, yeah.
At the same time, Sharon did try to make Paul's business work, but she couldn't. And eventually that closed down, too.
I guess I'm not surprised about that.
Yeah, I mean, if she doesn't know how the business functions, I would assume it would be hard to keep it.
Well, she had Jerry help her, but I don't think it went. Yeah, it is. It took a lot. I mean, it's a moving company. It's not, she'd have to have employees and all that. She did try.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, I'm sure.
Yeah, and this whole situation has created a big financial situation for Sharon.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Paul used to help her, and now, she got stuck with all the bills. And
oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, so her trying to make this work for Paul has not been good for her.
Did she have to take care of the second mortgage too?
Yeah, she had to take care of it.
She's responsible for that?
I think she had to sell everything.
Okay.
And she herself had to move to something else.
That's so sad.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and to this day, they don't have any answers on this at all.
Really?
They have their suspicions. They don't say much.
What are their? Do they say what their suspicions are?
Well, they don't say who, but it's one of the three things I went through as to what they think may have happened and why, but they don't say it's one or the other. When I was reading in my research, it did sound that many, many people think that Teresa and her family had a part in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just. It saddens me that all these years have passed and that they don't have the bodies.
Right. I mean, especially since they thought it was like somewhere near water. You would have thought that they could have figured out where all the closest bodies of water are and then search them. But
there
I
are
guess
a lot of lakes in
oh yeah,
Colorado.
that's right. Colorado has a lot of lakes. Okay, that makes sense.
So I mean,
yeah,
I don't know how what happened.
Yeah.
Really, but
I wonder if they could test the car to see if they could find out which lake it was.
I think they probably did, since they knew that it was a vegetation
Yeah.
on the radiator. So
Because I know, like, if there's sand, people can, like, trace sand back to certain beaches. So I was wondering if they could do the same thing with, like, I don't know, dirt or whatever they would find on the carpet.
it could be that there wasn't enough
Right.
there for them. And don't forget, it was cleaned.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
They did clean it. So if they even clean it with soap and water on the outside, that they looked. I think I said it was the radiator, right? So that says that they had to look on the inside.
Yeah.
So they must have cleaned it pretty well.
It's just awful because that little girl did not deserve that.
Right. And her mother, I mean,
right, no one
she was
gets
just
justice.
left. Right. She never got justice on Sarah.
I'm looking at pictures of them right now, and she looks like the most adorable little girl ever.
Oh, she is very cute. And Paul loved her. I mean, he loved her. So it wasn't.
You could tell she was his whole life.
Yeah, he did everything for her.
This makes me very mad, especially because there's just no justice.
Right.
I'm so angry.
And that's my story.
Wow. Well, that wasn't like super long, but I feel like I went through like a roller coaster of just a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
Like it was short, but it was very packed, I will say. So thank you, Mom. It was a very good.
Yeah, thank you for sharing their story.
So, time to say goodbye.
We hope you guys, thank you for listening. Please remember to review, like, subscribe, share this with your family and friends or anyone you know who likes true crime. And we hope you continue to stay on the area side.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Be safe.